Hello everyone, it's Tanny Games here. Welcome back to the channel. I'm here today to talk about the floating islands, and I am here on the Frosted Heights one, which is absolutely stunning. I am obsessed. I am in love. I think this looks fantastic. Yeah, I'm really excited by the prospect of these floating islands in terms of dream snack capabilities. Obviously, for anyone who wants to do decorating or speed build videos, this is going to be fantastic because it means I don't have to tear my valley down to do a speed build and things like that. So it opens up a lot of doors, which I love. However, I have a few issues with the floating islands, so I kind of want to discuss that today. Yeah, I just want to kind of vocalize my thoughts. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits to this, but there's also some things I've noticed which I'm not quite happy with. So let's talk through floating islands, what you can and what you can't do. So in terms of the floating islands, they are quite big. I was working out before, when I did the placement of items, what I was doing when I did my first video on them, we first got an update that said that the floating islands were 65 by 65. That's what they initially said. So I took one of these items, which has 5 squares on it. So I took this to mean, like, for instance, if I was placing this down, this would be a 5 by 1. Because it's 5 squares across and 1 down. So when I heard 65 by 65, I was like, okay, so 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60 and 65, and I was like, that's as big as they're going to be because that's what they had in the patch notes. Now it turns out that's not exactly what they meant, and they have updated their notes about the floating islands, and now when you check out the information, it actually says 135 by 135 or 130 by 130. So we know this is 65, so this is going to be 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, and then this is the same amount of squares, by the way. 95, 100, 105, 110, 120, 125, 130, 135, 140, 149? No, 144. I lost count. Typical me. I'll blame my dyslexia there. But as you can see, it's definitely a lot bigger. So it's a lot bigger than they initially said, which I'm quite happy about. This feels more on par with the kind of space that I was hoping for, both visually and things like that. I think this is going to be a lot better to work with. One of the things that I did was test about the park entryway when I was first looking at it. So if I type in entry, because I think it comes up as park entry. Yeah. So for instance, if I was doing my Bridgerton build, there is my 3 buildings. And then for instance, I could go on the other side, and this isn't even at the back end of the build. And already look how spacious that is. You can even fit that in. And like I said, this isn't even the back of the area. We can still go a little further back. You can see Pizza Planet's basically at the back there. But yeah, there's a lot more scope and room for decorating and things like that. And especially if you're someone like me who on decor dream snaps, you try and maximize your tags. There's definitely going to be room for you to create these kind of grand structures if that's what you wanted to do, while still having the space and area to put in tags and stuff like that. So in terms of sizing, I am very, very impressed. In terms of traveling here, you just have to travel via the wells by either interacting with them, and then the floating islands tab is here, or if you go into map, then you can also get them through this. There isn't a set map for the floating islands, so when you're in the valley map would show up. If you're in Eternity Isle, you would see the Eternity Isle map in the background there. We don't have that with the floating islands. Floating islands don't have a map. When you come to the floating islands, the Frosted Heights is like this. You can see it, very, very pretty. We've got a few little islands dotted around with trees on it, very, very nice. There's no pathing on this, but it is a mix of like an icy kind of texture and a snow kind of texture, which is very nice. We will next go over to Sunlit Island. Okay, so we're here on the Sunlit Island. I did place a couple of things down, by the way. These don't come with your island. This was just me trying to test out about the capabilities for putting items in the water. And unfortunately, that is something that I do want to address right now. Because there is no water around these floating islands, which I'll get into in a second, if you wanted to use something like this Oasis item, which you are now supposedly able to put water items in, you actually can't. You can't place water items. So if I come into all search and filters, and I'm going to go to the Princess and the Frog, we're going to scroll down to the bottom here, and here is the orange water lily, and it's an outdoor item only. So for whatever reason, these floating islands don't get classed as outdoor. I don't know. I can't place it. So even if I wanted to utilize the new system where you can place water items in here and you can see the actual squares, you can see the grid here for placing items, you can't do that. And that's a bit frustrating because then you can't maximize in terms of decor. I don't know if this is a bug or if it's intended. I'm not entirely sure, but it is a bit disappointing. There's no path on this one. Looking at the trees on this map, I think we have all of these trees. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but just initial glances at the foliage, like these are the acacia trees. These are are they called babao trees or so? I don't remember what they're called, but I'm pretty sure we have those. So nothing new here. There isn't any pathing here, but we have got a lot of grassy area and just a few patches of kind of like sand or dry patches kind of thing here. You can rotate items here, which is fantastic. I think that is great. But the lack of water isn't fantastic. And one of the things that I want to point out specifically for Sunlit, we were shown the Sunlit Island with water around it. I think we were even shown the Plaza one. They did show the Sunlit Island had a water barrier around it, which I know a lot of people were calling a river. For me, it was never a river. It was clearly always just, I think, looking at this, it was kind of like this kind of angle of a shot. But we had like Scar's house on a rock here, and then there was the river or the sea, whatever. Now I'm calling it a river. There was the water barrier, and when you look at, I think it was the Plaza one in the showcase, again, it had that same water barrier. So I always assumed we were going to be able to move water villagers, you know, people like Maui and stuff like that. But because there's no water, we can't. And it's really, I want to say it's really discouraging because they showed something in the showcase and it's not factual. And there's a few things from the showcase that have been like that, which have annoyed me quite a bit. Some not so much, but something like showcasing water with floating islands and then not having the water around them is very frustrating, because I know for myself, I was like, okay, well, we can put water-based elements on these floating islands, and now we can't because they showcased a feature that technically isn't available. Again, like I said, I don't know if it's a bug. I will try and reach out to Gameloft, see if they respond, but I know when you reach out to their customer service team, I think their customer service department is technically separate from the development side, so I don't think they know everything that goes on. I think that's why sometimes people get information from the customer service and it's incorrect. So I just don't know what to think. I'm hoping that perhaps it's a bug, or perhaps it's something they change over time. Perhaps they were worried with implementing the floating islands if there was going to be issues, so they restricted it. I don't know. But it is very, very frustrating to have been shown an island surrounded by water, in fact two, and then not get those. I just think that's a bit of a shame. But this is the Sunlit Plateau one, and it is nice. Then we come to the Forest Island, which again looks lovely. These bushes are very, very bright here. Look at these. Look how bright they are. They're like almost like a neon green. I love these trees. These firs, I wish we had these. We've got firs like this from the DLC, but in different colours. They're more like a bluey, greeny tinge, whereas these are more like a green. I would love these, just like on the Frosted Heights map, which has the kind of like the grey, silvery, snow-covered ones. Yeah, we need this. I hate that Gameloft keep adding foliage to this game that we can't access, because the foliage is absolutely stunning. I'm not gonna lie, some of the foliage pieces is just absolutely beautiful, and I wish we had. So we do get these muddy patches here on the forest map. I'm kind of not a fan of that. I wish it was all just this green, this grassy green. Maybe there are muddier patches like this in the Forest of Valor. I obviously just don't pay attention to them as much. But I do wish it was a bit more grassier than swampy, because the swampy kind of muddiness makes me think of the Glade, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like the Glade, is because of all the mud elements. I don't want mud in my Forest of Valor. I know that sounds stupid, you know, a forest has mud, but yeah, it's just something that I don't need. But this is our forest one. And then we'll go to our last one, which is the Plaza Island here. Okay, here we go. When you get to the Plaza Island, there is a stone pathing which you can remove if you want. I have placed Merlin down here as part of his quest line. Obviously, if you want to remove him afterwards, you can do. It's just for opening up the actual quest line, or opening up the floating islands. This island is free. The other 3 islands cost 15,000 Dreamlight, so you will at least get access to this for free, but if you want any of the other islands, you do have to pay 15,000. I like the detailing in the corners here, which match the plaza. These trees, gorgeous. Again, I need them. Gameloft, please, can we have these trees? And again, just the issue, no water. There is no water, and it's so frustrating. So that's my rundown basically of the floating islands here. Another thing that I kind of have an issue with, but perhaps slightly less of an issue, is the fact that there is no way to move over here. You can't move over Scrooge's store. You can't move over Daisy's store. You can't move over Remy's restaurant. You can't move over Tiana's restaurant. You can't move over the Goofy stalls, which in the Kia, it does look like there's a Goofy stall on the Sunlit Plateau Island. Well, it turns out that's just made up for the Kia, because you can't move Goofy stalls over here. So I am quite disappointed in that sense, because the only buildings you can move over here are player houses and premium house skins. So if you were thinking of moving those essential kind of buildings like Scrooge's store or Daisy's, which I was hoping to get rid of some of those buildings. I was hoping to move water buildings. I was hoping to move the Goofy stalls. After I seen the Kia, I was like, oh fantastic, I'll move the Goofy stalls. You can't do any of that. So just as a heads up, I just kind of wanted to make people aware. In terms of actually getting to these floating islands, you do have to have played through quite a bit of the game to unlock this. You do need to have the orb in the Forgotten Lands. If you don't have the orb placed in the Forgotten Lands, basically you won't be able to get this quest. So make sure you do your story quests up to the point of getting the orb for the Forgotten Lands, and then you will gain access to these here. Obviously, there are weather changes here. You can see it got very, very foggy in my valley. In regards to villagers, oh, I pressed the wrong thing. You need to come into the map here, but you need to press on this button here. So for me, it'd be pressing F, or I can just click on it. Whatever console you're on, it will say the button letter here, or basically what you need to press. So don't be alarmed, you'll figure that out. And then, for instance, if I wanted Goofy here and Donald, I would just click them and bam, here they are. So this is even better in terms of dream snaps for setting up for villagers. You just click on them and they'll be here. They will be here. And that is absolutely fantastic in my eyes, because it just makes it a billion times easier to get villagers together for a shot. Usually we use things like the cocoa stage or the campfire to gather villagers together in one location, but you don't have to do that now. If you want particular villagers, all you literally have to do is click on them, like click their name. Like obviously Merlin's over here because it's his house. I'm going to click a few different people and then boom, here they are, ready to go. And because this piece of land isn't too big, it's going to be so much easier to herd them over to set locations. You place the well down, they're all going to spawn in around the well. You can trap them. It's going to be so easy in terms of setting up for dream snaps, I think. I think it's going to be an absolute game changer. And then I'm hoping, but I might be wrong, we'll test this now. Usually the banishing of villagers is a bit iffy. It doesn't always work for me. So we're going to banish everyone except Goofy there. I think I banished everyone. We're going to walk in Merlin's house. And then I'm hoping this is going to reset. And then when we come out, the only person who we should find is Goofy. And there we go. So that's how that works. So say if you add a villager and you actually decide, oh no, I don't want them, and you want to banish them. So long as you've got a house on the floating island that you can kind of go into and out again so it can reset, that will be fine. I assume it would probably work as well if you kind of went off the map and back again. But yeah, that's just kind of how you do that. I don't know if there's much more I need to cover on in terms of floating islands. So you know what you can't place? Water villagers. You know you can't place water decoration in items that have a water feature on them, despite what the patch notes said. You can't do it on the floating islands. You can do it on the main island, but not the floating islands. You know how to gather villagers now to your floating islands. You can't place goofy stalls over here. It also means you can't place the Kristoff stall or the Mulan stall as well. So that's just a little rundown. Let me know how you feel about these floating islands. Let me know how you feel about some of the restrictions with floating islands. Let me know some of your concerns about that and stuff like that. If you've noticed anything with the floating islands that I have missed, please feel free to leave it in the comments. I'm always happy to learn from you guys, and obviously when you post, you know, you're able to then share it with the rest of the community as well. I didn't mean to press that button, but here we go. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you're enjoying the update. Do take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye, guys!